the people that make it all the way through have crazy discipline. And a lot of that crazy discipline that they have is rooted in the insecurity. I mean, sometimes that's the most powerful thing as a driver for anybody is these deep rooted insecurity. It's what drove me to being successful financially. Deep rooted insecurity that I could just, and so a lot of people that do well in competing have the most issues with the insecurities around that.
Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, the podcast where we debunk the eat less, move more, shrink more mentality and focus on what really matters, which includes your relationship with your body, food, self-worth, and the behaviors that align with all of those. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, licensed therapist with specialized training in food and body obsession, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. At the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, we believe what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. So let's have a conversation about that. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. Today, you are in for a treat. You know that one guy in every room who's taller and more jacked than everyone else? Well, that's my guest, Adam Schafer. The funny thing is he wouldn't even know if it was him if that was true because the guy's just so busy being himself that he doesn't worry about how he measures up against the crowd. Adam's individuality has always set him apart from the rest in the fitness industry. In a game of follow the leader, you can bet he'd never be staring at anyone's back. He's managed some of the largest fitness clubs in the Bay Area. He has 8 national certifications and a pro card in bodybuilding. And let's face it, he's a shoe king with enough Jordans that Google Maps might mistake him for the nearest Foot Locker. However, his greatest success was Mind Pump, one of the most successful health and wellness podcasts that are out in the world. While mature enough to grow organically, in the beginning, it really was a labor of love, and your girl can relate to that. It was Adam's competitive drive that nudged and nurtured it to become the success that it is today. So successful that YouTube autofills Mind Pump before Miley Cyrus. Wow, right? Goals. At the end of the day, Adam builds businesses. He builds businesses that reach and help more people than any 2 hands ever could. All right, guys, welcome, Adam Schafer. Yay! I need like sound effects for you. I am so excited to have you on the show. I have to share something personal. I promise not to get emotional. My dad just passed away 3 weeks ago. And I was in the hospital room when Margaret emailed me that you were coming on, and he was so excited to, just to see how excited I was. So this is for him, and I'm just so excited to spend this time with you.
Oh man, you get started all heavy like that, heavy-hearted.
He is the person who is like, do the work and everything else will fall in place. Do the work. And he was an entrepreneur. My dad was legally or visually impaired his whole life and then blind. And he has that same entrepreneur spirit. You guys are very similar in that way. So I feel actually very blessed to do this today. So thank you.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. I love talking to you, Christina. You know how much respect that we have for you. We always send love your way because you do such a great job. So pleasure to be on here.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, with that said, I really wanted to jump into the inner mindset of a trainer, but also the entrepreneur, because what I realized, like as a clinician, when you're just out of school, you have to go through like a supervision process, right? So you have someone who has an independent license credential. And a lot of the work is obviously making sure you're not like hurting anybody. But a big portion of the work is also making sure you're not transferring any of your shit onto your clients, right?
Yeah.
And then, at the same time, so 15 years ago, I became a therapist and then also started in this industry. And there's none of that regulation to say, hey, like, what are you bringing that is causing you to, maybe not be the best coach, or even what kind of insecurities you have about yourself that could interfere with you being very successful. So I think this is a great conversation to help at least build awareness around that. So yeah, thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot to unpack there, and I think it's very common. So, as you know, most of my career, I trained trainers, and you would have that trainer who sometimes would take the relationship with the client and turn it almost into a therapy session for themselves because they were unloading their drama, and they justified it because, oh, I have this great relationship with my client. but then they end up offloading all of the stuff that they have in their personal life or their drama or the things that are going on. And I think that's a difficult dynamic for some people because you also want to encourage this relationship that you build with your clients, but then also respect that boundary and understand that you're here at service for them and
Mm-hmm.
not the other way around. And I think that's even some like sales practice of knowing that we should be listening more than we're talking. And I think it comes from a place like that. You have to be mindful and aware of that, okay, I'm rattling on about my personal drama and stuff that I have going on with this client, and I should be doing more investigating and asking about them and serving them. And then also, I think caring about people. I think the thing that I found, this was just personally myself and then clients that were or trainers that were really successful. If you genuinely care about others and wanting to help people, that's a really good place to start from because you're going to meet a lot of people that you may not like, a lot of people that have different morals, values, worldviews. And if you don't have a genuine desire to learn about others and open-mindedness, you're going to really struggle with this part, right? Of this relationship part, which it's a relationship. When someone hires you as a coach or as a trainer, like you're building this relationship. And so, one, understanding the personal boundaries of your own personal life and drama, and you're here for their service, not the other way around. And then two, also being open-minded and curious to what others and how others think. So I think the two of those things, you have to be able to hold those
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously while coaching and serving people because it could definitely lead you down the wrong road. Or at the very least, you're not going to be very successful if you become that trainer who's just dumping and offloading all of your stuff onto your clients. Like that'll only go so far, and only so many people will probably stay with you because of that.
Right. Well, we think about that experience when someone's coming to you, whether it's, in person, in personal training or coaching, it's their time to take care of themselves. And for the majority of, I work with mainly women, they don't have that time that is just for them. Oftentimes, everyone else around them is making it about themselves, where the client, the woman I'm working with, really has a hard time with maintaining her own boundaries. So then you get into a position where the coach is also dumping on them, and they're just like, can I just have a second? Can I
Yeah.
have a moment for myself? And, I was thinking about as you were talking, why that might be, right? And my slogan here is what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror, right? And with that coach, I often see this imposter syndrome. So we'll kind of jump into some of the mindset issues that we see. And a sense of overcompensating by maybe sharing too much or, trying to overdo it with their training, whatever that looks like. They overcompensate in some way. Did you ever struggle with your own sense of imposter syndrome? And how do you use, if you did have that experience, how do you use that to help the trainers that you guide? Or what advice would you have for any trainer that struggles with that?
So I had different insecurities. I was not under any impression that I was a good trainer when I first started. Like, luckily, I had full ownership of that. Like, I was young, I was the least educated, the least experienced, and so I knew who I was,
Right.
and I was very and I use this to help other trainers too, to like show them that listen, even somebody who didn't have experience, didn't have education, yet I was able to move my way up and be very successful. And a lot of that was with being honest. I think where imposter syndrome creeps in is when we're pretending to be something that we're not. When we're
Mhm.
acting as if we know all the answers or pretending like we're really experienced when we're just not. And believe it or not, most people won't mind if you just say, I don't know, but
Mhm.
I'll find out the answer for you. And so I knew that I had a lot of really intelligent, successful trainers around me. And I knew I was already asking them for information and what books were they reading and shadowing to learn from them. And
Mhm.
so as I started to get my first few clients and I run into things that I didn't even know what to do with that person or was my first time experience that, I would tell them like, oh man, it's the first time I've had a client that suffers from gout. But let me talk to Erica, who's, she's going through her medical degree right now, and she's absolutely brilliant. And like she'll break it down for me, and I'll get back to you on what we should do.
Love
Like
it.
I was just okay with that.
Hmm.
And I think when you get comfortable with saying things like "I don't know, but I'll find out for you," you realize quickly that people don't judge you for that. In fact, they
Yeah.
really they appreciate that authenticity, that realness, and all they care is to get to the bottom of it. And they're asking you because you're the health and fitness guy, and you probably know a better person to ask than they know.
Right.
And so it's okay that I don't know the answer. I'll
Hmm.
go find you the answer. And so I was okay with there. Where my insecurities lied or imposter syndrome stuff, mine lied in financial stuff.
Mm.
And I don't know if you've heard me talk about it. I've openly discussed this before on our show and to people that ask me. But I came from not a lot of money,
Hmm.
and I was very motivated by that. I was motivated by reaching a certain level of finances, and just because I didn't want to have my kid to ever be on food stamps or get evicted from a home, or have to borrow money or light the house with candles for electricity because your PG&E got shut off. And those are all things that I experienced, and I said to myself, when I get older, no, I'm not going to go through this. So I was very driven in that direction, and a lot of it was through insecurity. I didn't realize what an insecurity it was until I caught myself doing things like you were mentioning, where I would be bragging about what I did or showing off financially because I still didn't feel like I belonged. That
Hmm.
imposter syndrome of like, I could be in a room of other really successful people. And because I was still so insecure about what I came from and where I was at, I felt this need to like tell you my bankroll or
Right.
what I did last. Like, and I mean, that stayed with me all the way deep into my 20s. And I had already reached really successful. By the time I was 22, I bought my first house. I was already into six figures, and that was 20 years ago, which
Right.
was so decent money. But yet I still had this need to flaunt, to flex, to talk about it because I felt so insecure about that. And so it took a lot of deep work on that and realization of that it was an insecurity. And I wish I remember exactly when it hit me. There's definitely a time when I remember being aware of it and still catching myself doing it where it really bothered me. In fact, we were up at a San Jose Sharks hockey game, and I'm in a VIP booth or whatever,
Mhm.
and everybody in there is is uber successful. I can't remember what the event was for. And I knew going into it, I remember telling myself, like, don't talk about your bankroll. Don't like, I remember even like having that self-talk
Mhm.
and then still doing it and going like, God, and what it
You
really
get
showed me was,
frustrated.
man, I could be aware of this insecurity. I know it's an issue. I could have a self-talk before I go in, and it still creeps out. So it was, I could feel the power of that when we have these deep-rooted insecurities. Even sometimes when we're aware of them, they still rear their heads or creep into that conversation. And it literally just became a thing that I really had to practice. And
Right.
the irony of it is just how much more I was accepted, how much more people thought of, like all the things that I probably was seeking from the telling people that I got all that and some by not talking about it. And
Right.
so,
Right.
and so that was where my imposter syndrome had to do with my financial success and
Mhm.
feeling like even when I had arrived, that I still didn't feel like I had arrived and still feeling like I need to tell people that. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I had to do a lot of work on that. But as far as the trainer one, I didn't have a lot of that. I knew I didn't know what I was doing. I was aware of it. And I
Yeah.
quickly I had success with outsourcing that. I really did. I mean, and maybe that's why maybe I got lucky. Maybe I quickly realized I didn't know the answer. I wasn't going to lie. I was going to tell the person, and that person really was like excited that I found the answer for them. And I was like, oh, wow, this works. And so that's how I coach my trainers is that, listen, if you have imposter syndrome about training people, it's one, because you just don't have a lot of experience, which is
Mhm.
expected. And there's something inside of you that doesn't feel authentic, that you are faking something or pretending to be something that you're just not quite yet. So instead of pretending and faking it, just own it.
Own it.
Just own it. And when those moments where you're uncertain on what to do, or you feel like you've got to go ask, just tell the client that. Say, I'm not sure. I
Hmm.
haven't I haven't dealt with that yet, but you know what? I happen to work with four of these brilliant dudes that have been doing this for 20 years, and I'll
Hmm.
go ask one of them. I guarantee you they're going to know somebody or have the best answer for you. I'll find out tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and then you give that to the client, and they're like, "Man, I love this kid. He's being real and authentic. He's not trying to BS his." Versus what we do when we have imposter syndrome is trying to fake it till we make it. I hate that, right? Fake it till
Right.
you make it. Like, that's awful advice. Like, don't
Agreed.
do that, because that's where the imposter syndrome creeps in, because you're
Mhm.
faking it. You're pretending to be something you're not. And I do think that because of the social media world that we live in, I think that's been exacerbated. I think
Absolutely.
so much of what we see online is the fake it till you make it. And so I
Hmm.
do feel like, because I don't know about you, I mean, I've been doing this for 20, 24 years, 25 years almost now. And
Hmm.
the word imposter syndrome is really, I feel like, gotten way more popular in the last 10 to 15 years, at least in my experience. Trainers used to not even use that term, but I feel like it's used a lot now,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of people pretending to be something that they're not. And so now it's become this almost a top question that gets asked by me. Like, how do you deal with imposter syndrome? It's like, well, shit, I didn't really have to deal with it as a trainer back when I started. But I feel like there's so many people online pretending to be something that they're not. And
Hmm.
so this is why this becomes a very popular conversation.
Yes, so many nuggets in there that I want to repeat. First and foremost, it's almost like the kryptonite to imposter syndrome is humility. Humility, being able to own it. And like you said, again, I always use my background as a clinician because that sense of rapport that you build with someone doesn't come with, yes, you're the authority. They're looking toward to you for answers. But if they don't feel comfortable with you and they don't feel like you're being authentic and genuine, then it doesn't matter how educated you are, to be honest, for everyone listening. It doesn't matter what you know. It's how you connect with people and being humble and being able to say, "Hey, you know what? I know someone who has a better answer than anything that I can come up with," is huge. The other thing that you said, and this goes back to your own experience with finances, what I like to tell people is a better than is what the brain creates as a solution for less than. And we go to this place of better thanness where I used to use my education and credentials as like, look at me, I'm so smart, right? And that was my better than in an effort to try to prove my worth because without it, I felt insecure and less than.
Yep.
And people don't realize both of those things come from the same place. They just present differently. This one is, I'm the problem. I'm wrong. There's something wrong with me. This one is, I'm great. Y'all are the problem. Like, I've got everything going on. Like, you're fine. But both of those are very much like dysfunctional patterns that are trying to kind of hide our insecurities. So I'm glad that you touched on that because people don't realize that that grandiose type of behavior is just as insecure as the woe
Mhm.
is me
Yeah.
behavior, right?
Yeah. So, no, so true.
We see that so much. And the other thing that you said, and I like to tell people this all the time, is just because someone lost weight doesn't make them a weight loss expert. And I think
Mhm.
that's where social media very much has created this newfound imposter syndrome because let's be honest, most of them are imposters. They've used someone like yourself or me to get to that place, right? To get to lose the weight, to do the work. And then they have this social media following of following their weight loss journey, which is wonderful. Like it's great to motivate people. But then they somehow become the expert. And that really can mess with people because if you think about it, you you didn't have that community, you didn't have that following when you were maybe in a larger body, right? And now you go through this process to lose the weight, you get the following, you get the praise, you get all of these things. It's all this external validation, right? And then all of these people are looking to you for answers and
Yeah.
whatever, what did you do? Tell me what you did. And that brings me to my second kind of mindset question. Now I'm going into a little bit of the influencer side of things, but you know, people look at trainers, for example, and they see, that trainer is really fit, right? That trainer has a six pack. That trainer uses their body as a business card, similar to these folks on social media. How do you see that interfering with business and their own process, their own health journey?
So this is an interesting one because, I'm coming up on 45 years old and been doing this for a long time, very aware that the origin of my fitness journey was also rooted in insecurity, right?
Mhm.
The thing that got me to go to the gym was being teased by girls for being skinny and all the nicknames of this being the skinny kid, and all I wanted to do was be bigger and put muscle on. And that's how I fell in love with personal training as a profession, because I was in love with building my body and, not being the skinny kid anymore. I think most, if not all, at least most in my experience, trainers come from a similar place. Sometimes it's not the skinny kid, it was the fat guy or fat girl or
Mhm.
the weak person or the person that wasn't pretty, and then they built this body that it gives them attention. You name it.
Oh, yeah.
Most of us are driven by, it's what got us off the couch, or it's what got us into the gym, was something that we felt inadequate, less than, and that, oh wow, we can go eat a certain way and do these exercises and change this thing that we're so insecure about.
Mhm.
And then the natural progression to that, if you do a good job at it, is you gain attention and
Right.
people go, you must know what you're doing. And then the natural progression is, hey, maybe I can make a career out of this.
Yep.
Yet I'm still coming from a place of insecurity. Although I've now got all this attention for this thing that I was so insecure with, by the way, feels so good to the ego,
Of
because
course.
that was something, and so
Mhm.
that's getting fed. And then simultaneously, you now have this opportunity to make a business out of it. And I think a lot, and I think social media and Instagram in general exacerbates that. And so we've got a, ocean of sexy bodies selling personal training and weight loss and health and fitness.
Mhm.
And I think most of them are still in that place. I mean, I don't know if you're paying attention to Sal and his journey right now on YouTube,
Mhm.
but he's openly behind the scenes. We've been talking about this for a long time. He is openly now really sharing with everybody how much of all his stuff is
Mhm.
like it's actually become a god to
Mhm.
him. Like
Right.
he, to a point where, and I remember we go on these trips and stuff, and we're traveling, and we all eat good, we all train, we all do our thing like that. But man, if we're on a 3 day trip traveling, something like that, and we got interviews to do and we're busy, like I'll probably miss the gym for 2 or 3 days, right?
Right.
Because I'm not going to get around to it, and I'll be fine.
Right.
Sal cannot. I
Mm-mm.
mean, Sal cannot. He's got to build the whole day around that. If he doesn't, and he's admitting that I've created this idol out of
Mhm.
this thing that was rooted in an insecurity, and he's actually openly sharing him trying to unwind that after 45 years of his life. And so
Mhm.
I think very few people are honest enough like he is to share that part of them, that they're still so in it, and they're getting so many people, telling them how great they are because of the way they look,
Right.
that they're not willing to go through that, because really health, it doesn't look like six pack abs and 24-inch arms. I mean,
Right.
that's just that's actually closer to obsession than it
Mhm.
is health. I mean,
Mhm.
health is this fear of all kinds of things that includes your relationships with your family, your friends, your kids, your spouse, with
Yourself.
exercise. Well, yes, yourself, with exercise, with nutrition. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a whole bunch of things. It's not just how the body looks. That's
Mhm.
a byproduct of a lot of the things that you have going on. And so we tend to just celebrate these people that just look awesome as like they're the pinnacle of health, and it's just not true. In
Right.
fact, it's so not true that most of them, if not all of them, are still at a place that they haven't even reached the full potential of health yet. But we measure them as that because they're 6% body fat, and so from an
Mhm.
aesthetic perspective, they're the healthiest people we know, or I
Right.
know. But in reality, they're really not. They're still operating from a place of insecurity that they couldn't possibly not go to the gym for 3 weeks because, oh my God, then they would look a little soft, or they wouldn't look as jacked as they normally looked. And it's like,
Hmm.
So,
Right.
so yeah, so I think that we have a lot of that going on, and I think a lot, and that's, by the way, too. I mean, I came from that place, so this is not me shaming those people or throwing shade on them. It's part of the journey. Like,
Absolutely.
but I think because of social media and how much it highlights that, because it's a visual platform that we're looking at, and that person's fit, therefore they must know something. It's a proof of concept, right
Hmm.
away. Like, okay, they have to know something, right? Because they
Hmm.
look the way I want to look.
Hmm.
But I think the consumer doesn't even fully know what they should be looking for yet. And I hope that, like, a lot of like the motivation behind the podcast and what we do was to kind of pull that curtain back for
Yep.
people, so we can, I think, inform the consumer a little bit better of what a more holistic approach to health looks like for people, and not this just aesthetic goal that you focus on, because most of those trainers aren't giving the best advice because they're still in that insecurity journey, and a lot of them are not even admitting it yet, so they're still early in that journey. It's just like
Right.
I said, there's another level, is like you realize it, like Sal realizes it, and he knows damn well it's still hard to get out of it. So
Absolutely.
you can be aware of it, and be open, and you can share it, and share
Hmm.
that journey with people, and then you can be in complete denial of it and just think
Hmm.
that the way you do things is healthy. And so I think there's a lot more of that than the vulnerable person or trainer that's admitting that, hey, this is a bit of a insecurity of mine that drives this behavior. It's not this holy pursuit of health that I present it as.
Right. No, absolutely. There's, again, so much to this conversation because, first and foremost, I love how you do, kind of peer behind the curtain. You allow people in to understand that insecurity. I like to share my story too. I mean, I've been a dancer since 3 years old. My body was on display. I was competitive by like age 8, right? And so there was this, I learned very quickly that my body had to look and act and perform in a certain way. And you guys share that story and using your platform so that these other trainers who are stuck in that may be able to peer in and say, oh, wait, I also struggle with that too. And so the more that we can, again, it goes back to that authenticity, be authentic of our own struggles, share them when we can, it opens it up for other people to maybe say, huh, that sounds very familiar, right? And in hopes that they get help. And you also said something about Sal, how, and I understand the process of like your physique and your body becomes where you receive worth rather than it being inherent. And I know he, has talked about his journey with like Christ and things like that, instead of saying, I'm worthy because I am a child of God or whoever you believe in, or I'm worthy because I exist, right? We're human beings, not human doings, but we tend to put all of our worth into doing and looking a certain way. And I just want people to hear that they're putting how they look into their like higher power. Like, if you think about it that way, it's mind blowing. But it's so common to not even think about the fact that, again, we're making it our identity, right?
Yeah.
I know
It's
for
it's
me, I was the
hard.
fit girl. I was the fit one. And it was so scary to not be the fit girl,
Yeah.
And you've
Yeah.
competed. Talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky I competed when I competed, though. So this is why I don't recommend competing for so many people,
Hmm.
is I went into it with a healthy relationship with exercise and my body going into it. Like, even the mission of it, I remember telling Katrina, like, this is the goal. I'm going to use this because I knew that gets attention, and I knew that for everybody else watching, it would create me as this authority. I wasn't any smarter before or after, really. It was like, but in the rise of Instagram and the internet,
Hmm.
if I was going to create myself as an authority, I better look the part. I better show people that I can do this thing. And
Hmm.
so it was always a plan to display what I was capable of. But I was so quick to be done with it. I was so
Hmm.
okay with letting it go. I was so okay with it that I remember the audience early on, because I was in the thick of competing when the show started. And
Mm-hmm.
I would tell the guys off air all the time, like, man, I just cannot stand that people refer to me as the bro or the bodybuilder guy. Like, that is not my personality. I'm like,
Right.
I'm more of a sports nut,
Car
wakeboard,
guy.
skateboard, car guy. Yeah, I'm a bunch of other guys than the bro workout guy. So in
Right.
fact, I was a personal trainer and I never saw sub 10% body fat. I never
Hmm.
carried myself below 11 to
Hmm.
13%, just good shape, but
Right.
I was never the buff guy in the gym. I was fit and athletic,
Hmm.
but I had the knowledge to be able to take myself to that level. And so luckily I went into it with the attitude, because I will say it's intoxicating.
Hmm.
I remember, I have I have a picture of a moment. I've shared this picture online. If you could go far enough back on my Instagram, and it's Katrina and I standing up at the pool at, I forget the MGM,
Hmm.
and it's sold out crowd, and I forget what, I think Calvin Harris is spinning,
Hmm.
and I just won USA's, and so literally sold out Vegas pool. I'm 100% the most jacked guy there. Like, literally could say that. I just won the night before USA's,
Hmm.
and the attention that I was getting in a place like that, in a moment like that, can be super intoxicating to somebody.
Hmm.
And even myself, like I remember having such a cool wife. I mean, Katrina was my wife at the time. She was my girlfriend,
Hmm.
like literally allowing girls to line up to take pictures with me and just let me have my day. Just like
Yeah.
there's literally a line of girls come to the VIP area, all wanted to take pictures with me. And she just sat back and just let each one come
Right.
through and take photos and just live up the moment and have a good time. And I mean, I could just see how much that would just inflate that ego and intoxicate somebody to want to lean into that more. And I think that happens to a lot of people that I know that get into competing, because a lot of people who can get into competing have, the people that make it all the way through have crazy discipline. And a
Hmm.
lot of that crazy discipline that they have is rooted in the insecurity. I mean,
Hmm.
sometimes that's the most powerful thing as a driver for anybody, is these deep rooted insecurity. It's what drove me to being successful financially. Deep
Hmm.
rooted insecurity that I could just, and so a lot of people that do well in competing have the most issues with the insecurities around that. And then just imagine that person goes the other extreme of what they used to be made fun of or they're insecure about, and now they're celebrated for their body. I
Hmm.
mean, that is just like throwing gasoline on the fire. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
like that's what that ego wanted so bad, and then they get it, and then they can't get out of it, and then they're stuck. And I know a lot of friends that are still in that world because that validation, that the identity is now wrapped up, and they're no longer the skinny kid or the weak kid. They're the jacked, most fit person everybody knows,
Hmm.
and it feels good, but it's a tough place to be, man. It's a tough place to try and
Yeah.
live there. And I'm lucky that I went into it knowing all those things and knowing that
Hmm.
I would be out. And again, I remember coming out of it and being so ready to be done with that. I didn't want to be labeled that. And part of my mobility journey, which was right after that, was to intentionally kind of lose the muscle, not be focused on how do I look.
Right.
It's like, because
How
I
do I
needed to go
move?
yeah, I need to go the whole other way
Hmm.
to get people to see that that's not who I am. I can be this other person. And so I went all in on mobility training and let go of the whole aesthetic thing, and wasn't dieting all strict. And it wasn't until after that journey did I feel like the more full picture of who I was
Hmm.
came to our audience, because before that I was the body. And understandably, because everything, like when you're competing, like your whole life revolves around
Right.
dieting and lifting and the way you look. And so
Hmm.
our audience was introduced to me like that. But it's
Hmm.
not who I am, and I didn't identify as that person. In fact, it bothered me. So it was really easy for me to move out of that. Granted, I look back at pictures and go, wow, I looked awesome. That's
Right.
so cool. But I
Yeah.
also remember the
It's
sacrifice that it took, that the toll it took on my wife, who was the one by my side that whole time, and everything revolved around my eating and my schedule. It's like
right.
I would never put her through that ever again
Hmm.
after what we went through. And so it was like an easy one and done for me.
Yeah. Well, which is great because, like you said, for a lot of people, it's not easy to get out because of that ego-driven intoxication, like you said. I love that word because you think of any sort of intoxication or high or relief that we get, say if it was a substance, right? We need more and more of it. And for a lot of people, again, like that, it's all driven from insecurity and they're not aware of that. For
Yeah.
like you said, I'm aware of it. And you have the awareness where there are going to be times in our lives, I'm sure you've experienced this, where those insecurities kind of pop up, right? And you recognize them, but you've had so much time managing them and having that kind of well-rounded sense of self, we'll call it, that you're more aware when you're not acting from this more well-rounded
Yeah.
way. But if we're not aware of it, how are we going to change it, right?
Yeah.
All we are aware of is I get attention, I look good, maybe I get more followers, I may even get more business from the way I look. And I couldn't fathom losing that. And that's where we will go to extremes, right? We've
Yeah.
seen recently some influencers who were not upfront with the things they were doing to lose weight. Obviously the GLP-1s, peptides, things like that. And I don't know where you stand on that. Like, do I need to share that with people? I mean, I'm very transparent. If I was doing something, I would tell my audience. But we see people getting, the BBLs and the this and the that and going to these extreme measures to maintain that physique. And that's just such a mind fuck in itself. But it's so common. What have you seen with that? Have you
Oh yeah.
experienced these people? Okay.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, this is Instagram world to me. It's like, it's
Hmm.
all full. And it's all back to the original, the original point you made when we started this with imposter syndrome. I think so many people are trying to live up to this look or this idea that, there's a real thing called perception drift. I talked about this on the show.
Mm.
And this is, they have a lot of research and stuff to show this with plastic surgery.
Hmm.
And I mean, I remember not that long ago we were talking about, like, don't these people see that they all look alike, and that
Right.
but they but they really don't. What happens is their perception drifts, and so their own reality of how they perceive themselves keeps moving as they do these surgeries. And so they don't see it the same way somebody else on the outside that's like very obvious. Like, it's very obvious you've done all kinds of work to your face. Like, it looks weird. It looks just like that other girl and
The
that
other
other
girl.
girl, but yeah, but yet you still do
That's
it.
so
But it's
funny.
because that perception has drifted. And I think we have, to that, you'll be a good person to ask this about,
Mhm.
because I get asked a lot about my self-awareness stuff. And I don't know if there's practices that you give clients or whatever, but when I'm asked, like, where that came from or how did I develop that, I became like, I like reading books on like self-awareness and ego, and I'm into that already.
Hmm.
And then I started to do this like practice, and I've been doing this since I was in my 20s, where I'm also a late night thinker, right? So this feeds into that. So I lay in bed many nights and my right brain's still spinning. But I would go back through my day, and I would go back in the moments that I'd have peaks or valleys. So big highs where I'm excited, happy, whatever went on, and that emotion, like something happened that day, like, and I'd unpack it, like, why? Why did I get so excited? Why did that make me feel so good? Is that who I am? Is it like, I would like really unpack that thing. And then if it was something that was like say for example was as simple as getting coffee with a best friend who I hadn't seen in a year, it's like, oh wow, that I realized that really fills my cup,
Right.
and that really put me in a good mood. I need to lean into that more.
Hmm.
And then the opposite, a valley where, somebody pissed me off and I snapped and I said something or got irritated. I'm like, why did I get so upset about that? Why did I allow something else someone else did to affect my emotion so much that I got frustrated for just a moment, but maybe even hours, that I was irritated, even, or I reacted. Why? And
Hmm.
and and so and the hard part for this part, because everybody wants to go, well, they did this or they said that. It's like, no, why did I allow that to bother me?
Correct.
Where's the insecurity in me, or why did that, and then to unpack that and go, oh, okay, I guess that triggered something for me of an old insecurity or old behavior or old thing. Like, I need to watch out for that. And
Right.
so I just made that a practice for as long as I live. It's still this day. If I do these check-ins with myself on
Hmm.
how I'm doing. I got an amazing wife that will do it too. She just out of the blue will be laying in bed. And she'll be like, "Hey, how happy are you? Or are you happy right now?" And
Hmm.
make me go through like the things that I'm so happy about or that I'm not happy about right now. And so I just think that's such a good exercise for developing self-awareness
Yes.
and understanding that like nobody should ever take your power and nobody should ever be able to make me feel a certain way. And so if
Hmm.
I feel angry, I feel hurt, I feel upset, it's never the other person's fault. It's always on me. And
Hmm.
what does that say about me?
Absolutely. Well, and what you're describing, like you said, it's building self-awareness. And what a lot of people do is they don't get to that place. I think of it as so your peaks and your valleys. So we'll say that when you got upset, say that you're like blowing air into this balloon. And then when you got the coffee with the friend, you're slowly letting the air out of the balloon, right? And that's happening to you each day. But we as individuals don't have that awareness. So we're just blowing air and blowing air and blowing air and blowing air. And we're not aware of it until boom. Exactly. So this is a perfect skill or task or reminder you could put in your phone. Just what am I thinking right now? Right? Where are my thoughts going? Where's my attention going? What emotion do I feel? Because so many people have, and a lot of the people we're talking about in regards to insecurity, we we don't have a good relationship with ourselves or at least trust ourselves, and that's why we look to external sources to tell us how to think, feel, and do. So by being able to stop and like you're doing, and I have my clients in my program, I can create it as a task for them to just stop and go inward and start to listen to themselves. And eventually with time and practice, it can become as you have so much clarity where you can have that full blown conversation with yourself of, oh, this happened because of this. This triggered, I didn't feel seen or heard in that moment. How might I deal with that differently in the future? And it is a practice, right? It's like building a muscle, it's going to take time. But what we're doing is we're listening to ourselves. We're starting to understand how we like what we think. And also what you said there, which I think is key, is we realize how much power we have over our thoughts, right? So many people, I say, you are not your thoughts, you're the thinker of your thoughts. And there is a big difference between those two things. But in effort to even know that, you have to start to go inward. And so that practice and setting a reminder on your phone, like, how am I thinking? How am I feeling right now? Is a good place to start for a lot of people and then, build on it to evolve to the place where you're at, where it's kind of like you're doing a full blown download at the end of the day and, taking from that what you will to be a better version of yourself tomorrow. I think that's fantastic, you
Yeah,
know?
I think you said it right. It's like building a muscle. It's not like that was a practice that I just out of nowhere. It's come from reading a lot of books on emotional intelligence and self-awareness and caring enough to want to learn and figure that out, and then realizing that, hey, nobody should ever be able to change my emotions. I own those. I have control of those. And
Mhm.
so if they do go up or down, what's causing that? And what am
Right.
I blaming in the moment for
Hmm.
causing that? And then going like, okay, let's take them out of the picture. What does that say about me to
Hmm.
allow that thing to cause this reaction from me? So,
Right.
and again, and it's like a muscle. It's not you suck at it at first
Right.
and you do it happens a lot and you'll
Hmm.
catch but you tend to catch reoccurring things like, oh wow, there's that money thing again. There I
Hmm.
am doing that stupid thing because, oh, okay. And then, over time, after you've trained that muscle, then you've gotten really good. And then, I'm in my 40s now, so that doesn't bother me anymore. And I don't think about it anymore. And it's cool to think that I was at that place and I came from that and I no
Hmm.
longer feel that way.
Right, exactly. And, everything that we're talking about today, this this is a great something for people to take away from this, right? Again, if your identity and worth comes from what, people tell you how good you look or tell you that you're the smartest one or see you as the authority, that's still giving people you're giving away your power to those people still, even though it's coming to you in this quote unquote positive way. What happens when that stops?
Mhm.
Right? Because it will stop at a certain time. Either people are just fucking tired of seeing your six pack or whatever. Like, you have to, by creating this inner practice, you create that inner confidence and true confidence in yourself because you're emoting from within. You're saying, you're saying I'm imperfect and I accept that and I understand it. And again, that creates true confidence in a person and knowing, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, all of those things. And it really again is like the kryptonite to insecurity is to almost like you said in the beginning, face it, own it,
Yeah.
own who you
Mhm.
are, the good, the bad, the ugly, and learn from it. And I just love that. I wanted to jump and kind of not really shift gears, but we were talking about the individual who is, very body focused, doing all of the things to maintain their physique. And what I see with a lot of coaches, and I get the opportunity for anyone who works for me to provide that sense of supervision that we were talking about in the beginning, where I'm actually more focused on the coach's experience with the client than really, obviously, I'm making sure that they're doing the right thing for my clients. But what stories are they making up about the client because of maybe lack of effort or motivation? Or a lot of coaches have, or people in this industry are very rigid, they're very routine, they will go above and beyond, and there's almost an expectation that the client will be the same or a projection onto the client. And then when the client is not doing that, they get really frustrated. And that's where I
Yeah.
intervene and say, hey, what story are you making up about the client? But what has been your experience with that? And what,
Oh,
yeah, go at
so
it.
I mean, oh yeah, no, I have a very similar. Just was meeting with all of our trainers, and this was more related to sales, but
Hmm.
I find it's parallel, right? Because I believe that if I build enough value in what I have to offer, anybody can buy or could buy.
Hmm.
And I've just approached that way of helping people forever. Is just that does I'm never going to default to, oh, they couldn't afford it. Even if that's the case, I'm not going to default to that. I'm always going to go, damn it, I could have built more value, or I didn't share enough of what I could have done for them, or I didn't learn enough about that client to figure out what would help them. And so I always, so first rule in leadership is everything is my fault.
Right.
And so if you are a coach with a client, you are the leader of that team.
Hmm.
And so it is never their fault. So you may have your systems and the things that you have planned, and they may have said this or like, it's your fault.
Hmm.
You are leading this person. And what is going to make you a great coach is your ability to learn that everybody is not the same, and your path, your system, your formula isn't always going to work, and you're going to have to find a way to get that person to where that and meet them where they're currently at. And everybody has different starting points. And so maybe you're this awesome coach when you get a certain client that is at this point and needed exactly what you have to offer, and then you're a home run coach. But
Hmm.
then as soon as you get somebody who is 5 steps behind that
Hmm.
or doesn't want to take that path, well, then it's their fault. They don't. No, 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 no. It's always
Hmm.
your fault. You are the leader in this situation. And so I've trained my trainers that like we don't even use that vocabulary. It's not ever their fault. It's what could have you have done to have got the sale? What could have you have done to have helped the client out? It's
Hmm.
always our fault. And I teach them to take that type of ownership. And so that's not even in our vocabulary of, you know, this person. So there is no storytelling of like, oh, the client did this and they said that. It's like,
Right.
oh, so you didn't do enough investigating, or oh, you didn't learn enough about that client, or oh, you didn't build enough value in what you have to offer this client because it didn't work out, right? Or
Hmm.
you couldn't figure out the thing that motivated them to make change in their life. Like
Right.
maybe next time you'll figure that out. But I definitely don't let coaches get away with the telling the story about the
Hmm.
client. Like that's weak. What I tell them is that even if it's true, it's just a terrible place to operate from because you're never going to get better that way. If your default every time a client doesn't see results or the client doesn't buy is they didn't do something or they fell or they couldn't afford, or if that's what you default to, you're never going to grow and never going to get better. And
Mm-hmm.
so you automatically need to learn to default to is, damn it, what did I not see? What could have I done better? Or and this is where you lean on your peers. This is where you lean on your boss. Like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work out. So then you come to me and go, Adam, man, I said this and I did that and I tried that, but for some reason, I couldn't get her to do these things. I couldn't, and then let's have dialogue about it. And maybe with my experience, or maybe Sal or someone else will give you insight on, maybe this would have been a better approach, or maybe you gave
Right.
her too much too soon and you should have only done this and committed or something, give her some wins. So she could
Mm-hmm.
have stacked some wins before you add the next layer to that. And
Right.
so, maybe next time when you get a client that's like that, you'll start them more here. And so, yeah, no, that's a common, I just had that. Ours was related to sales that I just did, but it's the same thing. It's like rule number one in leadership is everything is my fault. And
Mm-hmm.
so if we are leading these people and these clients, then you got to operate from that place. And so when you come to me with your challenge or the client that didn't see results, I better hear you go with what I could have done or shouldn't
Right.
have done or whatever, not the client story. Like I don't want
Yep.
to hear that shit.
Yeah, it's so common and it's definitely a something that I've had to walk my coaches down from of like, okay, I hear you're getting frustrated, like they'll start to be a little bit negative, maybe even a little judgmental, and I say, whoa, whoa, whoa. What are we doing with this? What story are we saying in our head about this person? Or they think they're lazy, they think they're unmotivated. And this is real stuff that these are real conversations that we have. And being able to have leadership that says, okay, just like you said, you're the person they're turning to. You're the person that is supposed to guide them. What is it that you could have done better? But also, I need you to check yourself so
Mhm.
that your beliefs about this person do not interfere with what we talked about earlier, rapport building
Yep.
and that authenticity in that relationship. Because at the end of the day, that's more important than anything else. And if you have those mental barriers, it's going to eventually cause an issue in that relationship.
I feel like this is connected to how we started this conversation, even with like when I think back to like what gave me that skill set. It's the same skill set of saying like I didn't know, like defaulting to going back to the imposter syndrome, pretending you're so good or you have all the answers, or if a client fails it's their fault, it can't possibly be mine. It's
Right.
all kind of the same, in the same vein of like pretending to be something that you're really not. It's like I think that that same attribute that I had that allowed me to go, I don't know what I'm doing, I'll figure it out, is also the same person that goes like, man, I could have done better with that client. They didn't see the results. Like that's the
Mhm.
same characteristic, right? That allows me
Mhm.
to, not fake it till I make it and just be honest with where I'm at. And then to also be honest with myself when I couldn't get that client a result, that I couldn't get her the result or I couldn't get through to her. Therefore, I could have been better. What is it that I could do? I
Mhm.
think that's a similar challenge. I think the same person who probably suffers from that imposter syndrome also suffers from what you're talking about right now, because again, they feel like, because then you have to admit that maybe you're not as good as you thought you were,
Right.
or that maybe, or admit that maybe some other coach could have got them the results, but you couldn't. And heaven
Mhm.
forbid you admit that.
Mhm.
That hurts the ego to try and
Mhm.
say that, someone else Christina could have done it, but I couldn't have done it. Like I don't
Mhm.
want to admit that, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that's part of that. And,
Mhm.
like we've been talking about, it's all this self-awareness and emotional intelligence to me is a muscle that you have to train and you work and you get better. And I mean, I still very much so operate from this place. I mean, I get questions that I'm very qualified to answer. And if I think I have someone at arm's length that can answer better than me, I still default to them.
Right.
Like I don't need to be the person who answers it just so I could feed my own ego and be like, hey, I'm smart enough to answer. I'm like, hey, well, let me ask Sal. Sal is like way better with that than I am. Let me do, and
Mhm.
he does the same thing with me. Like someone asks him a deep business question, he doesn't pretend. It's his business too. He could answer it if he wants. He knows enough, but he's just like, that's Adam.
Mhm.
That's his wheelhouse. Like, and so we all kind of have that similar personality where it's like we don't need to be the guy or be the one
Right.
that has all the answers. So I still do it in my business day, even when I'm fully qualified to answer that question. It's like I'm not the best guy to answer it. I got someone better to answer it than me, and so
Mhm.
better ask him. I mean,
Right.
he'll give a I could give you a good answer, but he'll give you a better answer. And so I still, that's how I operate from, is just like, man, if I know someone who I think could give a better answer than the answer I can, I'm always going to default to, let me ask them too. Like and another good word of presence. I think this might be a good idea, but let me ask so and so who I know is brilliant when it comes to that. It's like,
Right.
it's such a powerful thing to do,
Hmm.
is like, I think this might be good, but I know somebody who will definitely have a better answer than me. Let me ask if he thinks that we should do that, or maybe we do something else. Like,
Right. No,
it's
I
not that hard.
agree. Like I know my lane. I stay in my lane. Now I obviously have these different credentials, but I don't claim to be the expert when it comes to like, you know, movement patterns and training and things like that. My expertise is in the brain, right? And
Mhm.
behavior. I've learned these other things, but I'm always talking. We have a group of even some of the gals through other networking opportunities that you and I have been involved in the past. We have like a group coaching text so that we can have those conversations because some of them are more skilled in different areas, and it's really for the trainers listening, it makes life a lot easier too. It makes
Yes.
life so like you're like, this is my lane, I stay in this lane, and then I have these people who I turn to who can answer those questions.
Totally. Imagine the amount of, I mean, this is again where this imposter syndrome creeps in. The amount of stress that you have to carry if you're constantly giving people advice or telling people to do stuff that you probably don't know for sure the right answer.
Right.
You just like outsource that shit. Get that off your chest, get
Hmm.
that off your plate, man. You don't want to have to carry that around. That's awful. Be like, I don't know. I'll find out though. I'll get back to you.
Right.
And now
Exactly.
it's not versus acting like I know, and then all day I'm thinking about, God, I hope that was the right advice, or
Right.
I'm not sure I said that right, or it's like the stress that
Yeah.
that's got to cause to operate from that place. It's like so
Hmm.
much easier to just say, well, I think this might be a good idea, but I'm not sure. I'll go ask so and so and get back to you. It's like, dude, so
Hmm.
much easier.
Yeah. Well, I can talk to you about this all day long. I have two more questions. One, hopefully we can make it concise, but it kind of feeds into this same thing of not only do we think about, the limited mindset around how we portray clients and, if they're not working as hard as we are, then, they're lazy and this and that. But then also this idea of there's only so many clients and there's like this one pie and everyone's picking a piece from it. The scarcity mindset, which is all of these are, I feel like they're like not identical twins. What's the other one?
Oh, you're like a Siamese twin, you mean, or
Right.
like
No, like
a
like instead of identical, the everyone's saying it's this. I always do this on the podcast where I forget a word. I'm
yeah.
42. My brain is, she's buffering. Uh Fraternal twins. Yay.
Yes.
So they're all like fraternal twins of each other, but the scarcity mindset of and I have this reoccurring once a quarter where I think the entire business is just, ship is sinking, we're going down. And then I check myself. I'm like, yeah, oh, yeah, it was about 3 months. Okay, great. Like, move on. But scarcity mindset and thinking that there's just not enough to go around.
I mean, this is 100%. These are all connected
Hmm.
for sure. I mean, I definitely operate from a place of abundance. Part of why people suffer from the imposter syndrome and they don't want to go say, let me go ask Sal or ask this other trainer, is they're afraid that that client will leave them and go with that other trainer because
Right.
they're admitting that other trainer. That is such a terrible place to operate from. And I'm telling you, my entire career, I never operated from that place and had tremendous success with clients.
Hmm.
They will appreciate you saying you don't know and going this way versus having that scarcity. Because you're right that like that people get that imposter syndrome. Part of that imposter syndrome is created from the scarcity mindset.
Right.
Is because they're so afraid to say, I don't know. Let me go ask another trainer who you
Hmm.
could go hire
Right.
besides me. That sounds so scary to go do that in fear of that person leaving you. And so you don't do it. So
Right.
you're afraid to do that. It's such a terrible place to first of all, there's way more obese people and broken people that
Hmm.
if every trainer had an entire full book, we'd still be missing lots of people. And then
Right.
there's plenty of people training lots of people that don't do a good job for you to go do a good job. So
Absolutely.
this idea of having a scarcity mindset is weak. And I
Hmm.
think too, the other part of that that I think is so important in my life when I unpack the things that have helped me be really successful, one of those things that I would attribute as one of the top things is my relationships that I've built.
Hmm.
And I think when you give people that respect, you help others, you share with others, you give and you operate from that place. You just built this is, I mean, this is what attracted me so much to my wife. I'd never met a woman who had built as many dynamic relationships, and she operates from the same place of giving first without expecting anything in return. And what that
Hmm.
ends up with is this incredible circle of people and resources when you're 40, when you've been doing that for almost 30 something years.
Right.
You've got these incredible resources. Everybody I feel is at arm's length for me. And a lot of that goes back from not having a scarcity mindset, not being, and even if I did lose the client, if the client ends up going and getting the help they need,
Hmm.
like that person is going to speak so highly about me down the road because I was the one that made that introduction.
Right.
And so, at least in my life, anytime that has happened, the person that I gave away to somebody else that didn't spend money with me ended up paying me back in other ways.
Right.
Sent me a family member, another person, or was so appreciative because of what I did. They came back to me. This idea of that you are going to lose your business to somebody else because you ask for their help or you defer to somebody else. I mean, it's this is so apparent and obvious because obviously we one of the things we do is we have our trainer course where we certify all these trainers, and it blows my mind how many of them don't use us as a resource. I'm like, you guys are so wild to me that you
Right.
have all this free content that we put out and encourage you as trainers to go use. Like I would literally, if I wasn't me and I was like the other brand new trainer and Mind Pump existed, I would build a epic business off of Mind Pump's back.
Right.
I would literally, and no one, the clients don't care. The clients don't go, well, this isn't you giving the advice. No, these are four brilliant dudes that have been doing it for 25 years that I've learned so much from, and they
Hmm.
just say it so well. And so I wanted to share. It's like it's so easy to do that, and
Hmm.
people will appreciate it, and you will grow your business coming from a place of abundance. You will shrink your business coming from a place of scarcity. And a
Absolutely.
lot of people operate from that scarcity mindset. It's probably also connected to, or the twin to, the imposter syndrome is you have this imposter syndrome because you're faking it till you make it type of personality. You also are scared to death that heaven forbid you introduce this client to another personal trainer or coach that does what you do because in fear of they're going to take them.
Right.
Terrible,
No,
terrible
agreed.
place. Yeah.
I've always been under the rule, if you will, especially when I was practicing as a therapist, that if somebody was with me for longer than 2 years, it was time for me to refer them out
Mm.
because what I do was so specific. Now, obviously, working in the eating disorder facilities, like there is a revolving door, unfortunately, but I'm talking more when I was just doing like outpatient. If we're still working on the same problem and we're not seeing, some movement, then maybe we need to look at a specialty or something that I don't do that could be more beneficial. Like I I've been out of working as a clinician since like ketamine therapy has come into play. So if like that's going to be the most beneficial thing, then of course I'm going to refer out. Even now,
Yeah.
I refer to therapists with the clients in my program
Yeah.
because I want to ensure that they have that place to process the deeper stuff that we may not necessarily hit. And I think of, a hospital setting. You have your internal medicine doctor, you have your oncologist, you have your radiation or radiologist, you have all these different people, and they all have, again, they all know their lane and they all work with each other in an effort to provide the best care for the patient. And as a good trainer, if you can take that same mentality, your client is going to be the one that benefits. And like you said, say that they do lose them. I think this is brilliant. I want to repeat this. Say they do lose them. At the end of the day, the client is getting their needs met.
That's right.
And that should be your motivator,
And
not how
that
much money you make.
the
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 money will
the
come.
cre the credit you build with that individual
Hmm.
is so much more valuable than the whatever the hourly they're going to pay you for how many sessions. And this back to my point about relationships have been a huge part of my success today because I have so many people at arm's length, and I have so many people at arm's length because I've done right by people in situations like that. Instead of thinking, what do I get from it or what would I lose from it all the time? It's like, how can I serve others? And if part of how can I serve this person is actually giving them to somebody else who could better serve that person, I just build incredible store credit with that person that later on in life, when I reach out or need help or need a referral, that person's going to do it because I led from a place of that, of not selfish, of selflessness, of going,
Exactly.
how can I help this person? Like, and that's like compounding interest. I try to tell
Mhm.
people all the time. It's like, it's not like you're going to do that one time and then tomorrow you're a millionaire because you did that. No, it's like something you practice your whole life. And then you look back after 20 years and holy shit, you have helped so many people that didn't serve you, but just because you genuinely wanted to do them right. And now because of that, you have this incredible life and you have all these things that people that you can reach out to because you've built those relationships. But if you operate from a place of scarcity, you'll have a little itty bitty circle. It'll
Hmm.
be a little tiny circle of the handful of people that you trust and work with, and that's it. And you won't have abundance. It's
Hmm.
not a place to operate from. And the sooner you can figure this out if you're a young trainer, the more abundant life will be with you of operating from that place. Because I tell you, it's like compounding interest. When I look back, for 25, 30 years of operating from that place,
Hmm.
I don't think there is a thing in my life that I need or want that I can't pick a phone call up and I know the person to call. That is
Hmm.
like literally that I could reach out to support, help me, or introduce me to someone. And that's just a testament of decades of relationship building. And sometimes in that relationship, it means I'm willing to give up my time, my money to help others and serve others.
Hmm.
And it always comes back
Right.
tenfold.
Of course, because there's not going to, even from the business to business relationship, that creates kind of that referral source between both of you because you have this mutual respect for each other. Usually when you are referring to someone, they're not someone who is in this kind of ego-driven state because I'm guessing those aren't the people you associate with for the majority of the people around you. And so and then also the client experience of
Right.
again being felt like they're taken care of. I want to just end with this because a lot of the listeners are the consumer. And so, any sort of things that they should be looking out for if they are, maybe dealing with or hearing some things like, oh, that sounds like my coach, or that sounds like someone I've worked with, anything that you can give to the consumer. I mean, all of this obviously refers to any sort of position you're in, not just a trainer. Like, this is mindset shit. So, you can take a lot and apply it to any part of your life, but to the consumer themselves who's looking and being like, that sounds like my trainer. Obviously, none of you who work with me. What would you say? Just some little, but one to two things that they can be aware of, look out for, or any
So
like
number one thing that we teach consumers to pay attention to is a true assessment of the client.
that.
And depending on what kind of coaching you're getting, that can differ of what exactly looks like. But just purely that, a lot of coaches and trainers get straight to like, here you go, here's your diet, or here's the workout and kick your butt.
Right.
And it's just like there was no real full intake assessment process of your history or your goals or what you've done in the past or your mindset and where you're currently at right now and what's worked or not. So a thorough assessment is the first thing that I would look for because it's an easy way to probably carve off like half the bad trainers that are floating around there because they default right to let me go kick your ass and that
Mm-hmm.
just right away speaks to where they're at in their coaching or trainer journey is that they default right to like if I break this person off and give them a hard workout maybe they'll sign up like
Mm-hmm.
that's a sign that's a very sign of a bad coach and a good coach will meet you where you're at. And so, depending on who you are that's listening to this right now, so let's take like two examples of, let's say, two people that have the same weight to lose, same experience in training, but maybe one of you has never been able to string a month of consistently going to the gym 3 days a week. And then the other one is really, really consistent, but then they've never really dialed in their diet. Well,
Mm-hmm.
okay, those two people I'm going to start at different places because of that. The person who's never strung together a month of consistency. Well, maybe they're overcommitting to how often they're going to the gym right now. And maybe we start with a lower commitment at first because I
Mhm.
want to stack some wins. I want to show this client that they can put their mind to something and stick to it, accomplish it, overcome it, and then we'll move on to the next thing. And let me tell you, even one day a week of training, I can show you change, positive change in your life.
Right.
And then let's take the person on the diet side. Then there's a person who is just like, I'm just a mess with my diet. I'm not going to write down a meal plan for them and go follow this thing. I'm
Mhm.
going to ask them to show me what a week looks like of eating. I'm
Mhm.
going to take it and I'm going to look at maybe one or two things that I can make some adjustments. It will not be a perfect diet right
Right.
yet, but I don't want to throw this person who has struggled with being consistent with a diet for a long period of time a crazy opposite way of eating than how they currently eat. I'm setting that person up for failure. So these are just
Exactly.
two examples with exercise and nutrition, but that this goes with anything. So a good trainer, you will know because they will meet you where you're at. They will be able to assess you well enough to hear what you're saying and the goals that you have, and they will convince you to go, hey, let's start here and then we'll stack on that. If a
That's so
trainer writes a meal plan, writes a workout, writes everything, then just like hands off to you, say, all right, let's go 3 times a week, and that's like that's how they present, and they probably do that
Mhm.
with every person.
Oh yeah.
Probably not the best coach. You want somebody to individualize and tailor a journey for where you're currently at, and that looks very different from person to person
Absolutely.
based off of where they're currently at, all from mindset wise, physical wise, nutrition wise. And so a good trainer is looking for those things. And then, of course, if you get blessed enough to get a trainer that has any sort of psychology background and personal training, I just think that's a beautiful dynamic too. It's rare, but when you
Yeah.
get somebody who's got some nutrition and exercise knowledge with also understanding the mind and the psychology sense, so much of getting in healthy and in shape is behavioral
Hmm.
changes and understanding behavioral psychology, which is like why it was one of my favorite reads is learning that, because that trainer probably has a lot more tools than just, hey, this is how you should eat. Hey, this is what you should. They understand how the brain and behavior works and
Hmm.
are probably going to be better at recommending steps along the way for you. So those are just a few things I would look for if I'm a consumer shopping a coach or a trainer.
Yeah. And I did not pay him to say that last part. No, I love that. And it makes me, speaking of external validation, it makes me always feel good to know, I'm on the right path because that's how I work here and how I coach other coaches myself. And I learned a lot of that from you guys, and it's been I really appreciate everything you shared today. And I really do consider you a mentor to me. We're roughly the same age, but like your knowledge, I feel like is so much more mature than mine and like, especially the business area. So I just really appreciate you sharing this. And I know that, you know, we have to, like we said, we don't have a lot of this in our trainings, in our certifications. There's a lot of work on how to help the client, but what about the coach and helping the coach see themselves, put a mirror in front of them and say, what parts of me and the way I think and the way I behave can I change for the better to be the best coach for my clients? And so I'm glad that we were able to share that today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah.
Plug it all.
Anything related to Mind Pump, if you're just a customer or consumer who's looking for health around fitness, go to askmindpump.com. We have our AI tool that's like one of us that's answering that. And then probably the other thing would be, if you have trainers and coaches listening, is our trainer course. So Elite Trainer Academy, we have a podcast on there on the YouTube channel that we've just recently released. And so I'm a big fan of, don't buy anything from me. Go take all the free content that we put out there first and learn from all that we got out there.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, thank you guys. I hope that you found this incredibly helpful. If you know someone who is dealing with any of these issues, I'd love for you to share this episode with them. And as always, if you haven't already, make sure to give us a follow if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching our beautiful faces on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if Adam hasn't convinced you this already, I'm going to leave you reminding you of this one last thing. What you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. Bye bye.